So I think we ran through about 2 to 2.5 hours of call and response when it came to this beautiful little Pandora's box that we got to open today. I admittedly didn't know what to expect, especially from the active standpoint, like I discussed.
Yeah.
I had a feeling it was going to just excel with the passive bass, just because of the initial history that Keith gave from their kind of like launch point for its design and the idea from that 60s and 70s availability of those instruments, passive bass, tubes, chef's kiss. You know what I mean? Like, it's just match made in heaven.
Yep.
I really, really, really loved that. Like, literally, this was perfect. Like, you didn't have to do any real like knob turning and guessing. You literally, it's what was that one commercial? Like, set it and forget it. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's literally that. It was, I just don't have the weird, plastic face. That guy. Yeah, I don't have that. Thank God. Not yet. This was great. I loved that. I really, really, really leaned on the 60s tube more. I felt that between the active and passive, I felt that it had more of a tonality that my ears preferred on its own. But there was some instances where that 70s tone, like I believe we were running the when we were talking about the Timmy C bass lines, that was a 70s tone. And that had that growl to it that you just liked.
I did enjoy the 70s tone more on the passive pickup.
Yeah.
Than the
active. I agree.
I think the 60s sounded great on both, but if I'm doing the 70s, I think the passive worked a little better.
I agree.
I mean, they're both great, but I think the passive probably, to my ears, worked ever so slightly more with the 70s than the 60s.
And for full disclosure, those were not new strings. They were Labella RX nickels. They were round wound strings. They weren't flats. They weren't new. You didn't have any of those like leg ups where you would have like, well, that's because they're new strings. Like, no, I did not change them specifically because I didn't want to have that as to be a potential crutch or a bias that could be set against what this was doing. Those were old strings, and it was on opposite ends of the spectrum, and I did that on purpose for the $500 bass and the not $500 bass. So you could, nice try, wife. So you could see how they sound, right? And I was massively impressed with both.
Yeah.
I loved that a hi-fi modern bass didn't get pulled away. No, it was not in the slightest. In fact, it accentuated what you wanted to hear with a hi-fi modern tone just as much as it fattened up what you want to hear from a passive bass. So what everybody always is drawn to is that they always say the same thing, right? Like, oh, active pickups, that's not active pickups, but you hear those excuses. Oh, it sounds sterile. It sounds brittle. It sounds light in the ass. And that's why I play passive. And that's why I'm a boomer. And that's why I don't do that. You don't have to worry about that. You can play whatever you want. You can play a microwave. I don't care. If you have this hooked up to a microwave, the microwave's going to sound better. This right here, no touchy, just like we said, plug and play.
Yep. It's rare.
It's recorded. The playbacks on it in between takes. I was blown away at how full the passive bass sounded. I really wanted you, and thank you again for making yourself available for this, because I wanted your opinion on this, because you've done so many studio sessions, so many recordings, so many instruments, and bass players wet and dry signals and everything to get to where something that's going to be usable sometimes can be pretty meticulous. This, had you had that, and all those circumstances, it would literally be done.
In a nutshell, if I have this in the front end of the rig, I'm a happy boy.
Yeah.
Because I don't really have to worry about it. Because I can just pull this if I want to, recording at the same time as it going out to an amp setting. You can flip the bypass switch on and have just somebody's normal rig and rundown setting, and I'm still recording this at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful because this is a great foundation. I can just blend that up and in and be like, yeah,
I was
sounds good.
Massively impressed.
Yeah.
Whatever the price point will be on this, it is worth it in spades. Just for the simple fact that you can have something accessible for any session or any setting, whether it's a live gig, whether it's recording, whether it's theater, whatever it is.
Just home
even if you're at home
practicing.
Yeah. The headphone amp thing.
Yep.
Super rad. I love the fact that that's on here. So you have 2 different tubes, headphone amp,
separate headphone,
and then control settings for each tube, and you can blend them. My favorite part is all of those right like that, everything like that. Sounded huge. I was most impressed by. I mean, I love playing my MTD. Don't get me wrong. But I love playing my Mexican Fender too. That passive bass sounded great. Yeah. So anybody that's worried about like, oh, I'm never gonna sound like that because I don't own an MTD or I don't own an F-Bass or Federa. You don't need to. You don't need to. For a fraction of whatever those basses are, you can have this in your $500 Fender or Sire or Squire or Friar Tuck or whatever you're playing. It's gonna sound awesome.
Yeah. Agreed.
I'm massively impressed. I'm super excited and thankful that Keith made the trip out here. I really, really enjoyed playing this and getting to mess with it and use it. It made my subpar playing sound tremendous. I love it.
And it's going to be interesting to see Keith try to get out the door with this.
I'm really sad that he fell down the steps.
Yeah.
It was unfortunate.
Yeah. Well,
R.I.P. He landed on it too. It broke. The only prototype.
Shucks.
Chucks. That sounded like Chucks. Thanks, everyone. This is really, really cool. Keith said it's coming out, I believe, the end of April. Pre-orders and all that. So public can order it end of April. So whatever it's going to be checking Tsunami's social media. Facebook, Instagram, and all things in between. The V-15 preamp sounded awesome from a direct setting.
It's just direct, nothing on it.
No coloring, no amps, no extra mics, nothing else. That was literally just the cameras and the direct setting, and it was huge, right? Huge. It sounded good. Through 5s and 8s, it sounded really good. This is not a paid testimonial. If it sucked, I would absolutely tell Keith on camera in front of God and everyone else that it sucked. It does not. I'm blown away. Absolutely blown away. I loved it. And I am looking forward to the launch of this. Thank you, everyone. Be watching for Tsunami to drop this and don't miss your opportunity to get one. I believe Keith said that once the initial pre-production of all the pre-orders are sold, they're doing 30 every 2 months. So unless you don't mind waiting 2 months at a time, which maybe you're fine, get on that. It's totally worth it. Absolutely worth it. Jeff's buying both of ours. It's going to be great.
It's handmade. It takes a bit.
Yeah.
Just be
I
patient.
love it. I love it. Thanks again.